Hello, everybody. This is Mike Goldstein, Stickers of the C.A.N Report, coming at you again. I have an awesome guest with me today, Miss Timary Malley. She works with me at the Derry Fire Department. I am very happy to have her on today talking about her experiences and what she does for the Derry Fire Department and how she got into it. Derry is a great fire department that we have in the state of New Hampshire. They're very progressive in EMS and fire, and Timary is one of the I guess still newest, but not newest anymore. She's on almost 2 years. And so she's got a lot to say about being a newish member on the Derry Fire Department. Timary, welcome to the C.A.N Report.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me, Mike. It's an honor to be here.
I'm happy to have you. I'm excited to have you today. Timary's background, she's got a great background. She's a female firefighter, obviously, for the and she's now a paramedic on the Derry Fire Department. She was born and raised in Worcester, Mass, and she's lived there with her parents and her older brother. She played sports throughout her entire life. You name it, there's a likelihood that she played it. The two sports that she focused on were hockey and softball. She ended up playing hockey in college at Hamilton College, where she got a bachelor's in biology, and then went on to Merrimack College to earn a master's in sport and exercise physiology. And during that time, she began her journey to the fire service in New Hampshire and ended up getting a per diem position as a firefighter EMT in New Boston, New Hampshire, and then the same in Amherst, New Hampshire. She was then hired full-time in Derry. And while at Derry, she received her advanced EMT and then went to earn her paramedic license. As she continues to work as a strength and conditioning coach on the side of being a firefighter paramedic. And she currently lives in Merrimack with her significant other, Josh, and her puppy, Willow. All right. Well, thank you so much, Timary. That's great. I love it. First off, how did you get into the EMS side of things? Because you're really strong in EMS, as I know from my experiences working with you. And just background too, Timary and I were also work on the same shift. We're on Battalion 2, and we're also working out of the same station as well. So we actually work on the ambulance together a lot recently. So we're having fun with that. So Timary and I are, I'm a basic, and Timary is now a fresh medic. So she's calling the shots in the ambulance, and we're trying not to screw things up too much. So Timary, so tell me about how you got into the world of EMS.
So I went very much the unconventional route, as some people would say, where a lot of times people getting into this field, they kind of know from high school or going into high school, and then they'll kind of hop right into it. I kind of went a more untraditional route where I ended up going through my bachelor's program and got a master's degree, and then I was kind of like, I want to try something else. I considered military a lot growing up. When I was 12 years old, I was like, I want to be an infantryman. I mean, obviously I was 12 years old. That wasn't going to happen. And at that time, women weren't allowed to be infantry. So, I mean, I always had that on the back burner in the back of my mind. Even going through college was reconsidering the fact of joining the military, but didn't end up doing it. I didn't feel that it was the right path for me, per se. I have a lot of family with military history, cousins, uncles, and so that always was kind of on the back burner. But also my uncle was a paramedic in Worcester, and I remember when I was young, he would bring the ambulance over on his shifts, and we'd kind of get to see it and climb around in it. He was also an athletic trainer, and when I played sports in Worcester, he was often the athletic trainer at the games. And I remember one time in middle school, I got hurt during a soccer game, and he came out because he was the AT at that school, and it was kind of just doing the exam and whatnot, and just making sure, taking the signs of a concussion or whatnot, because I got hit in the head. And
that explains a lot now. I understand.
Yeah, it happened a lot of times, actually. And so he did all the questions and the eye exam, and then at the end, he was like, "Who's your favorite uncle?" And I just started giggling and laughing. It was like, "You." And my coach was really confused on the side. And he was like, "Oh, yeah, this is my niece, by the way." And so I always kind of around that environment, and it was always kind of there in the back of my head. But it wasn't until I really sought after it as a profession, where I went to college thinking I was going to veterinary school after I had my top 5 vet schools picked out. I wanted to go to vet school, be a veterinarian. And then after my freshman year of college, I ended up getting a job at a vet hospital and being a vet tech assistant for the summer. And I loved it, but I realized that it wasn't the path I wanted to go down. So I kind of was like, you know what, scratch that board. Let's go back to the drawing board and figure something out. And that's where I found kind of strength conditioning. I ended up doing that and focusing on that for a little bit, and having a sports background. I'd always been training, but never really saw that I could do that as a profession. And then once I got into the profession, I felt like I was fulfilling my purpose of helping other people, but there was still like a puzzle piece missing. I was like, I want to do more. I want to help more. So that's when I reconsidered the military aspect and then the civil service. And I was like, I don't know if I really want to be a police officer right now. Ironically, because I'm dating one now. But then I was like, oh, firefighter seems pretty neat. And EMS, I spoke with quite a few female firefighters in the Massachusetts area. Angie Roy, she's a lieutenant on the Worcester Fire Department and a good family friend of my parents. I spoke with her and another firefighter out of Arlington, Mass, and kind of got the whole gist of, it's a team sport. Everyone is working together. Everyone's on the same page. Everyone has the same goal in mind. And that was exactly what I was looking for. So I kind of pulled the trigger with that and said, you know what, I'm going to go get my EMT basic, and then get a job in private EMS, see how that goes, and then keep going with the fire service. So I ultimately decided to do that. And so I got my EMT in the end of 2021, like May of 2021. Got a job with a private EMS company and worked there for about a year, and also worked there throughout my master's program, which was a year-long program.
Was that in New Hampshire that you worked for private EMS?
No, that was in Worcester. I worked for a Transformative out of Worcester, Mass.
And what kind of transfers did you do out of there? Was it just basic transports, or did you get to do any stuff, any contracts, or?
We had some contracts with WEMS, so we would take, if they had an overflow of calls, we would start taking some of their 911 calls. So I dabbled a little bit with 911s, but nothing to the extent that we deal with now, or that I've kind of dealt with after the fact. A lot of it was IFTs and really honing those basic skills, which in Massachusetts, as a EMT basic, you're not allowed to use a monitor, even for a blood pressure or for a pulse. So everything was manual. Wow. So it really honed in on my basic skills. Yeah, those 2-hour transports were something where you're taking blood pressures every 20 minutes to make sure it was still stable. But yeah, so I got through that, and then that's how I kind of really found my love for EMS. And I realized that, private EMS isn't the exact place that I want to end up. So I foresought elsewhere to fire departments and ended up in New Hampshire.
Did you know anybody in New Hampshire?
Did I know? I started in Massachusetts and looking around because of where I lived in Worcester. A lot of the towns around Worcester, they have they have a mile requirement where you can only be a certain amount of miles away in order to count for their call vol. And I was always just outside of that realm where I lived in Worcester. So when I kind of kept running into that block, I was like, you know what, let's just look and see of New Hampshire. Sure. And at that point, Josh he had gotten hired in Derry. So I was like, okay, I'm going to end up in New Hampshire eventually anyway, so might as well just start looking.
So you were living in Massachusetts and you were already dating Josh?
Yes, we met in Massachusetts. We're both from Mass, and we both moved up to New Hampshire.
And at that time, he was still a police officer in Derry?
Yes, he got hired in August of 2021, and we started dating in May of 2021.
Gotcha.
So he had gotten hired when we were dating, and he moved up in the fall of 2021 during his police academy, because his police academy was the last one to be fully residential, and then they had a COVID outbreak, so then they moved to commuter. He's like, I'm not going to drive from Bellingham an hour and a half to Concord and back every single day.
Sure.
So he ended up moving up, finding an apartment in Bedford at that time. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was saying then I moved up to New Hampshire in 2022.
2022. And then, so you moved up to New Hampshire, and what was the first apartment? Was it New Boston?
It was New Boston.
Yeah.
So I was actually commuting from Worcester to New Boston for a little bit of time, like an hour and 20-minute for my shift that I wasn't getting paid for. I only got paid if we went on a call. But I was like, you know what? I have to do this. If I want to get into this service, I want to see if I like it. And so I was driving about an hour and 20 minutes, hour and a half from Worcester to New Boston for my shift, and I drive back. And then
because New Boston didn't have any sleeping quarters either, right? So
at that time, no.
Right.
Once I moved up to New Boston, I was 2 houses up from the fire station, which was great, because anytime a call came in, I could just run down the hill and go to the station. But they ended up renting a house like right behind the station that was attached to the church, and there were two beds in that apartment that they were renting out for the on-duty crew to stay overnight, and that's how they got the approval to have people on shift overnight.
Now, New Boston, they did a lot of student programs, right?
Yes, they did a heavy. They had explorer programs. They did per diems to, if you had your basic, they would send you to the fire academy, get fire 1, fire 2, etc. Advanced DMT, they would help with reimbursement for that too. So they were very much a like education forward growth department.
Now, did they send you through the Fire 1 and Fire 2 program? Were you there?
They sent me through Fire 1, and then they were going to send me through Fire 2, but it ended up being a state funded, so we didn't have to pay anything for it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So your time on New Boston, you got to get some fire training as well. And so when you were doing that, is that kind of, did that motivate you or inspire you to become more into the fire service? Or did you already
definitely did.
Yeah.
I knew from the get-go that I wanted to join the fire service, and I knew kind of my path in was going to be through getting my EMT basic, and having that and then getting my fire certs were going to be the pinnacle of me being able to get a job later on. And I'd considered staying in Worcester, but knowing with like the civil service and whatnot, and wasn't sure on how long that time frame would be, because during the time of COVID, classes were getting canceled and then popping up out of nowhere, but they already had a list and et cetera with civil service. So I just said, you know what, I'll try my luck in other places right now too. And speaking with Angie, she's like, you're gung-ho, you are getting your EMT, you're a female, you're going to be wanted by people. Like, people are wanted in the service right now, but the fact that you'll have your EMT already, you're going to be a leg up over others. And so that really kind of pushed me to keep going. And I, after doing some calls with New Boston and some trainings, was like, I really like this stuff. And so that was kind of how I'm very thankful for that department. And it's funny because the kid that picked up the phone when I called New Boston, he is now on Manchester too. But it was like, yeah, we have this program where you can come do, you're a recruit and you do per diem stuff. And it's like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And we have no residency requirement. It's like, perfect. That works.
That is fantastic. So how long were you on New Boston for?
I was on New Boston for a little over a year.
Okay.
Because I ended up getting hired in Derry. And so, oh gosh, I got hired in New Boston in 2022, got hired in Derry in 2023. So I was on for like a year and a half in New Boston.
So then you moved to Amherst as well then? Were you still on?
Yes, I worked I still currently work in Amherst. I haven't worked for a bit because it's the per diem and just through medic school. I was like, you know what, it's a lot right now. And I was still on probation in Derry while going through medic school. So I really wanted to focus on getting used to and learning how Derry does things and all about Derry, and then also getting through medic school and doing relatively well with that. I wanted to do that. So I did get hired in Amherst. I actually met Allie Freitz, who's a lieutenant paramedic in Amherst, in my Fire 2 class, or Fire 1 class. We met in Fire 1. And I was like, oh, I'm, looking for another job too, just to kind of help with finances. She goes, oh, we're hiring in Amherst. Like, oh, okay. I went down and interviewed and put an application and got hired there. So that was great. And I love it there. The people there are awesome and very helpful with everything. I had a tough instance with my uncle that they were right there with me, as was Derry, but this was when my uncle actually ended up in the hospital. And like, Josh had went to the station and they were like, hey, this is happening. And one of the deputy chiefs, I literally said, hey, one transporting one to Southern and EMT staying in town. And he was like, hey, A that's driving the bus, you need to switch out with the other A and get back here ASAP. And I was like, oh, maybe there's a fire call coming in because I'm the one with fire certs on the ambulance, so they just need me. Sure. And it ended up being that my uncle was in the hospital, and he was like, you need to go down to Worcester. And so the fact that they called me off of that, were like, you need to go. We're taking you off the shift for right now. They're very much family oriented as well, like Derry, which is great.
That means a lot, in our line of work, where people know that, you're not going to work until they're dead. And when family members are sick or something comes up, obviously mentally too, we're not in the game anymore. You're thinking about your uncle, you're thinking about whatever family member that's going on. How much are you going to be into the game and trying to focus on of patient care when that's going on around you. I mean, some people
Yeah.
are able to block it, but at the same time, when something goes bad, then that's when you say, well, I've had a lot of stuff going on in my head. It's better to take that person off the shift and let them be with family members and let them clear
Yeah.
their heads than trying to force them to go through a shift and
Oh, yeah.
just become a mess. And I'm definitely one of those people like, no, I'll continue to work. And then you've seen it, like, no,
Hmm.
you need to go. You need to go home and take care of business.
Yeah. No,
So,
I'm the
and
same
I,
way.
very blessed that we have departments that actually care for us and care for our mental
Yes.
health and care about our families, and they want us back on shift to be the best that we can be.
Yes.
So that's great. So you did Amherst, and then you're on probation with Derry. It's pretty crazy that you did a lot of stuff while you're on probation. You're a much better person than me. I tell you what, the stuff that you accomplished in your first year is nothing short of amazing. You got your A, you were going through the A program, you're getting your advanced DMT while you're probation on Derry. You're already enrolled into that program before you got hired on Derry, correct?
Yeah, I finished the program and then I got hired on Derry, but it took me 3 times to pass that written test. I hated that written test. So I took the first written before I got hired, and then I took the next 2 while I was hired, and finally passed the 3rd time. So glad I never take that test again.
Yeah, so are we.
Yeah, it's great. It's got to be more money just dishing out.
Oh man, but no, I was just thinking about the index cards that were on the kitchen table, and you had your little nook there of index cards and laptops. Yeah, your little corner nook there of all your studying material.
That someone eventually put a cardboard box in, could just put all of my stuff into that
Yeah.
box.
And then then you finished that, and then like what, like 2 months later, you end up enrolling in the accelerated paramedic program out of Cambridge, Mass.
It's funny because I got my A. I remember it specifically. I think it was November 13th. I was coaching at the gym and I saw the email because I had tested that morning. I saw the email that your results are in. I was like, oh God, I'm not going to look until I'm done with my clients here. And then I looked and it was like, oh, you passed. And it was November 13th. And then I enrolled in the paramedic program on like December 2nd or something like that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So you did the accelerated program. Derry has got very strong medics. They're very EMS oriented, and we would take a lot of pride in the fact that we have some of the best medics in the state. And they sent you and another person through the program. What was the accelerated program like? Again, you're on probation. You're also having to check off your everything that goes along with that, and keep up your probation, and also now immerse yourself in a whole paramedic program. Sorry, my dog is going crazy.
That's okay.
The dog
We might start
is.
doing the same thing eventually.
I have someone here taking care of our heating system, and so she is a mastiff, and she's very protective, and she's just barking like crazy. So sorry to everybody. My dog is going nuts, being
The mini
protective.
horse.
Yes. So you're doing the paramedic program and you're doing your probation. What was that like? I mean, because again, there's no way I could ever do that. I tell my wife that I would have to move into another apartment and shut myself off from everybody for the next 9 months. So what was that like, having to deal with everything you have going on, work, life, probation, paramedic? What was that going through your head like?
It was hard. It was, for a lack of better terms, it was tough. And, I wanted to do everything I could on probation to, not necessarily prove myself, but to be the best that I could be with that and to excel. I mean, I was very green getting into the fire service, where Derry was my first full-time job. And although I was per diem beforehand as a firefighter EMT, I didn't get much fire experience. It was a lot of it EMS based. So I was very green with the fire service. I wanted to do as best as I could, but I also wanted to excel in my paramedic program. And I feel as though I had a little bit of a leg up because the year prior I had graduated, or year and a half, I had graduated from an accelerated master's program, which was also 9 months long. And I was also working full time during that. So I kind of had the study schemes and kind of that routine down still. And so I was able to carry that over into the accelerated program, and also having my advanced EMT and kind of that base knowledge and my biology degree. I'm like, I have the A and P, the anatomy and physiology. I have that down. And that's kind of the base of which you form going forward. And so I had that kind of bit of leg up, I would say. And being on Derry, I was riding the medic a lot. So I was able to bounce ideas off the medic that I was riding with and trying to get into that mindset, which I think also really helped. And I was very grateful for being on the medic and being able to talk with my paramedic partner. And, after the call debrief, and they'd be like, hey, what do you see that you would do in the paramedic spot with this call in the future? So I felt very lucky that I had the support system that I did during that time. It was not easy. It was a lot, but I think if I didn't go to paramedic school at that time, I don't think I would have. Sure. I wanted to. And so the uncle that passed was my Uncle Dan. He was the one that was the paramedic in my family, and he was my godfather. So he was always the second dad to me growing up. He was there for every step of the way. He was someone that I would go to if I needed anything. I could tell him anything, and he was always a person. He was a rock. He was my rock for that. And unfortunately, he battled stage 4 lung cancer for 10 years and ended up passing in 2023, on November 29th, 2023. So a little over a year ago now. And I had gotten a text from one of our lieutenants at the time saying, hey, it was November 28th. And my uncle had ended up in the hospital on November 27th. That's when I got called out of the call in Amherst, and Josh drove me to Worcester. And got a text on November 28th saying, hey, we have an open spot for paramedic school. Do you want to go? And at that point, I was like, no, not right now. Really, no one knew about my uncle being in the hospital at that time. It was only my deputy chief at Amherst and then our family and Josh. So I was like, no, not right now. I didn't want to think anything about it. And then my uncle passed on the 29th. And I was, going through all the emotions and whatnot. And I was thinking about it more after the fact, because he also told me, if you want to go to paramedic school and your department is willing to send you and you want to do it, do it. Don't wait on it. Do it.
Yeah.
And I remembered, and it was around that early December time, I was like, he did say this. I know I just got done with school, but I do want to do it eventually. And if I don't do it now, then when am I actually going to do it?
Yeah.
So I texted the lieutenant. I was like, hey, just curious, is that spot still open? And they're like, yeah, call your BC. And so I called, it was Atwater at the time. I was like, hey, I want to go to paramedic school. And they're like, great. And they're like, you're starting January 1st. I was like, cool. Sounds good.
Yeah, that is, that's a lot. Yeah, like I said, the fact that you are dealing with some serious family issues, but the fact that you're using your uncle's motivation and inspiration that made you go through it, obviously, I from the story you tell me, I don't think you would have gone through the program had he not said those words to you, right?
Yeah.
You probably would just brush it off, and maybe some years down the road, it would have happened. But I think that's amazing that you used your uncle's inspiration and that his memory carries on in your successful completion of the program. That inspires you to be such a strong force in doing all of what you're trying to do and accomplish is your uncle's memory. Not everyone has people like that in their lives, so it's something to cherish. And I think that's really cool of you to be able to share that story of not only how much you love your uncle, but the fact that he motivated you and inspired you to be better and accomplish these goals. He's telling you, yeah, don't be silly, don't be dumb. If they're going to pay for it, go do it. Why not? I think it's really what's, for me, that's obviously what drove you to be successful in that program. Because you also achieved an award while doing that program, correct?
Yes, it was the Director's Award. And it was me and another person who ironically went to high school with Josh in Bellingham, Mass. It was the weirdest connection. And so Josh he wants to take the award for that. He's like, hey, the two people that I knew in the program got the award and they were there. I'm like, being his typical self. But yes, it was the Director's Award. It's given to the student in the program that the director sees kind of as a leader and that they thought excelled very well in the program. And so it was me and another person, Luke, in the class that he gave co awards too.
Now, did you always want to be a medic?
It was in my head from the get-go. I knew that like Uncle Dan was a paramedic and that, they kind of get to do all the things in the field. And I was like, but first I need to start with my basic. And then when living in Massachusetts with my basic, advanced EMTs don't really exist in Massachusetts. So it was either stay EMT or become a paramedic. So I always kind of had that idea of, I'm going to become a paramedic one day. And then I got to New Hampshire and I was like, you know what, I can take the step and get the A first. And then I did that. And then I still had the want of being a paramedic in the back of my mind. So I'm like, this is great. I have a wider range of medications and patients that I can help, but I don't have the full range. Sure. And I was like, being a paramedic sounds pretty cool. I think I'd like that. And I ultimately did that, and I'm very happy that I did that.
That's awesome. Now, what's it like now being the full medic? You've given the reins to run that ambulance. What's that like? What is some of the emotions? What is it for the people who don't know it, someone inspiring to become a medic? Now you are, how old are you again?
26.
26. Now you're a brand new medic. You just finished all this. Now they say, go ahead. Here's your keys to the castle on this ambulance. You're calling the shots. What is that like when you first got approved or poofed, as we said, to become the medic, the prime medic on the ambulance? What is that like? What is it going through your head?
When I got poofed, then I got mandated the next day. It's a learning curve for sure. Going even from the student medic role into the primary medic role, I had gotten a hand of being the student, and you're making the calls, but you have that person there who's your mentor who can say like, I want to go down that route, or keep going down the route you're going. And now you're like, the mentor's not there. Oh God, okay, it's me. Or when someone calls for a medic and you're looking around, you go, oh wait, that's
I'm
me.
the medic.
Yeah, you're like, oh God, that's me. Okay, it's definitely a learning curve, but I mean, we have some incredible resources in Derry, and our officers are very willing to send an engine on a call, even if it doesn't warrant an engine, just to make sure that I'm doing all right and I am, not feeling overwhelmed entirely with the call itself. It's definitely a different perspective to take on things. I think that really came into effect with my first cardiac arrest in Chester with someone ending up in the water. Luckily, our chief ended up being on that call, and it was great having his support, and he was even messaging me after, just making sure I was okay and saying I did a great job, and it went as smooth as it could have. But it's definitely a learning curve going from just doing skills and assisting the medic to being the person who is calling the shots and deciding, do we need med flight? What hospital are we going to? Do I need to needle chest decompress this guy? They're going to need a tube, et cetera, like running through the multitude of possible differential diagnoses and trying to wean them down to a couple, and then, making your treatment plans and knowing that, I could give one medication, but that could bring them down the wrong path. I could do another medication, but that could also bring them down this path. It's a big puzzle, but I like puzzles. I've always loved puzzles, and I think that's something that I enjoy about it is I got to figure out the puzzle, and I need to find where the pieces fit. And I try and look at it that way, where I'm trying to figure out this big puzzle. And so it keeps me intrigued every day. And you see things that continue to progress your knowledge going further. And I think Josh Eustace on our department, he's someone who can talk all day about all these medic things, so I'll go and bounce ideas off of him too.
That guy loves EMS.
Yeah, he was a huge help during paramedic school too for Carney and I. I loved doing ride times with him on the medic because I was like, so much was learned. But yeah, it's a whole different ball game, for lack of better terms. It's a whole new puzzle, and like the A was kind of like the 500 piece puzzle.
Yeah,
the medic is like the 2,000 piece puzzle that you're trying to figure out. And so I enjoy it. It's definitely a learning curve, but I definitely feel like I'm getting more of a handle with it each shift.
Good.
And I like that you in order to do well in the field, you have in this field in general, you have to keep learning. And so
Right.
you have to keep moving forward. And I think that our department also does a very good job with that in terms of, making sure people are aware of the classes that are posted monthly and yearly and providing those learning opportunities, having the cath lab come in and, do a demonstration on how they remove clots and whatnot, and just fostering that learning environment. It's tenfold when you want people to stay engaged in the field and to keep doing well in the field.
Yeah. And I imagine too that you also becoming now that lead medic, finding your voice, being the person that has to actually, like I said, call the shots now, and whether going to a nursing home or coming on to a scene, motor vehicle accident, whatever else the situation being, you have to be the one who has the voice. You have to be assertive. And that, I think that's kind of a hard part against, one, being so new in the department, right? And then also being so new in now your new role. And I don't know, does female also come into play with that? Do you have to work more to get trust from people, or is that something that you've seen any hindrance or struggles in? Actually, as a whole, do you feel that being a female in the fire service world, do you think that you have to work harder? Do you think there's any more struggles than I definitely see more growth with females in the fire service. I've seen a lot more, but now you're playing two roles. You're playing fire service, you're playing a firefighter, and you're not playing, but you're performing as a firefighter and you're performing as a paramedic. And having it being a female in that, do you think you have to work harder or prove yourself more? Others.
There are times that I do. And honestly, sometimes you'll go onto scenes and they're like, "Oh, you're a paramedic," and you're like, "Yeah, I'm also a firefighter." And they're like, "Oh, you're a firefighter?" Like, yeah, I do both. um, I don't know if it's second nature for me. I mean, I was a huge tomboy growing up. Like, I was following my brother around at the hip, even though it annoyed him out of everything, but want to do what he was doing. Always, just hanging out with him and his friends and playing boy sport. I played baseball until I was 13 years old. I
So
played
you've always been competitive.
Yeah, I've always been competitive. I've always been around boys. I played boys ice hockey until I was 13 years old, and I've been in male dominant fields with strength conditioning. I worked at some Division 1 colleges for strength conditioning and have always been kind of in that realm where it just seems kind of second nature to me, where I know that if I do my job and I do well, that I'm doing what I need to do. And I feel as though being a female in the fire service might give me a sense of a leg up, where we are kind of less or there's fewer numbers of us, but the fire service is wanting to increase the numbers. So I think it kind of gave me a bit of a leg up in the hiring process, where I had my EMS certs, I had my fire certs, I was a female, and if people are, adding diversity to the fire service, then you're going to be kind of sought after. So I think that it helped me in a sense. And I do think that there are times where I feel as though I need to prove myself a little more. Like with,
Yeah, well, that's what my question is. Like, do you think that, well, she's only here because she's a woman. We gotta have diversity, and yeah, she has no fire experience, and yet here she is being a firefighter, but just because she's a woman, which I don't think that's the case. But just playing devil's advocate here,
yeah,
do you
yeah.
think that that more females get hired with less experience, or do you think they get hired because they are not just females, but because they are qualified, that they are capable and willing to do the job? And like I said, I teaching at the academy, the girls that I've helped to teach, man, they are top notch. They blow past all the guys every time, and they're usually the leaders of the group. So I think that from what I've seen, that it's not hiring weak links just to fill I mean, they are hiring the best of the best. And I think departments around the world are doing just that, of being proactive and not just hiring male roles anymore. I think they're hiring strong female leaders and strong female paramedics and firefighters and police officers. And I think that the world has changed a lot. And like your background of playing sports and being in a male dominated role in those sports industries of hockey, for one, right? I mean, that's really male dominated. And like you said, you're competitive. I think that helps with being in the fire service world. You know that you're going to have to have that competitive mindset and be strong on the fire grounds, and also strong as a paramedic to have your voice, to be assertive, in a male dominated area. you're going to have to be the one that's might have to be the loudest. And we know that for you, you have a really loud voice.
It's relatively easy at times.
So that's going to
Sorry,
be
so
easy. But working on a call with you, and it was a simple call for the most part. But for that call, it was at a rehab facility, and
oh yeah.
you were very assertive, and we talked about it after the call. I was so impressed that the fact that you didn't let that nurse make the decision for you, that you said, no, this is what's happening with this patient. This is what I think the patient needs, and we're going to do it this way. And they were still kind of fighting back and forth with you on it, but the fact that you stuck to your guns and you were assertive and said, no, they need care now. We're going to go to the closest medical facility to get them the best care possible. That showed to me that you can have your voice, that you are assertive. And I think having a background of being driven, being heavy in athletics, and being competitive, and being around people that might fight you back, it showed that you're not gonna let people walk all over you. And again, that was a pinnacle moment for me to see you actually succeed in your having a voice and say, no, I trust in my skills, and I'm going to tell you exactly my professional experience and knowledge, and we're going to get this patient the care they need right now.
I appreciate that. I think it's a common, I think throughout the females that I've met in the fire service and that I've kind of seen, a common characteristic is that same mindset of like, I'm here to work. I know that I can do the work, and I don't need to, there's no like explanations needed other than you seeing me do my job.
Mm-hmm.
Once you see me do my job, you'll understand that I am capable of doing my job. I think that female firefighters, anyone in the fire service, is very strong-willed and determined to do well. And I mean, you get into the service because you go to people on the worst days of their lives. It could be any call, but for them, it's the worst day of their life. And what you want to do is you want to help. And so having that same mindset, the drive to do the best you can to help others, I think it's just a common characteristic throughout the fire service. And I think the female firefighters that I've seen are very strong. They're very into their physical fitness. They want to do well, and they do well and prove that they're worthy in a sense by just, they show it. And I think that's the biggest kind of way that they go about it.
Do you think that for training and being physically fit, do you feel that you have to train more? I mean, do you think you have to lift differently, or train your body differently? Like, preparing for the CPAT, they have for the physical test, right? They have a female week where just the females can
Mhm.
get an introduction to it, and learn how to drag differently and learn how to train. And you're part of that. And our other firefighter, Louise Bishop, is also a part of that, which I think is awesome. And so you guys get together and help other females train to prepare for the CPAT and hopefully pass that. So there's a was it like 3-day program, or is it just a day?
It's a day, but they have different days throughout the year. But yeah, I think that you do have to train differently as a female, where just biologically your upper body strength is not as much compared to a male. That's just biology. That's just kind of the way it is. So you need to train your upper body a little bit more. I don't know. I'm considered weird to other people because I love leg day, and other people are like, "Nah, I like I like arms." I'm like, I like leg day, but trying to utilize our legs to our advantage, and that's something that I kind of noticed on my personal CPAT as well, where I was doing things and I was driving for my legs. I knew my upper body strength; it's there, but it's not to what other guys have.
Sure.
And so I trained upper body, and I still trained legs, but I did a heavy focus on upper body. And then getting to the test, I wanted to use my legs as much as I could because that's where my driving force was out of. And for me, the hardest part was the dummy drag. And just because of my height, you have to hold the dummy by the handles. You can't go underneath the arms. You can't do anything like that. So you're holding this dummy in an isometric bicep curl for the entire length that you're dragging it, and your arms are burning out. And in my head, it was just, go, move your legs. And then you get to the end and you have the breach and pull, and then okay, more arms, but no, you drop down and you use your legs to your advantage when doing that. That way you don't burn out your arms. So I think a lot of it is helping females realize that there's different ways to go about it. Just because you see a male counterpart do a test one way doesn't mean you have to do it the same way.
Yeah.
you have to find what works best for you. You have to find how you succeed in that test. And I think the most important part is you have to train for that success. I think a lot of people go into it just thinking, I need to train for the stair stepper. You do, but you need to train for, okay, I have now, it's like 7.5 minutes or 7 minutes to complete the remainder of this test.
How long did you prep before actually taking that test?
I made like a 5-month program, I
Now,
believe.
your background in your sports medicine, did that help prepare to get some kind of routine or
100%.
understand? Yeah. So you,
Yeah.
not that you had an advantage per se, but you did, right? Like
Yeah.
you kind of know the physics more behind everybody else.
Yeah.
So you knew what really to train on, how to train your body to get where it needs to be. So you had a 5-month program that did you build that yourself or did you have other people help you?
No, I did that myself. I did essentially like a progressive overload for 5 months. And the big thing was cardiovascularly being capable of carrying that weight, but doing, some difficult tasks for 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Trying to simulate that fire ground exercise. So a lot of it was interval training, but also focusing on strength training on other days and working in the Stairmaster. And then I ultimately worked up to 95 pounds on the Stairmaster for 3 to 5 minutes. Then I'd hop off and I'd start doing lunges for the length of the bay and back, and then a dummy drag for the length of the bay and back, and would work up to doing multiple rounds of it to
So you
make
did
sure
yourself a
that,
circuit.
yeah.
You built yourself. I think that's so important. I love it because when I'm helping people prepare for the CPAT and people say, I'm preparing, I'm going on a run or I'm lifting some weights. And I always have to tell them, this is a circuit training. This
Mhm.
test is a circuit that is a nonstop motion. For 10 minutes, you are going to be beating yourself up and you have to train like that. Just like we say, we train like we play, we train like we work. And I think if you're just doing one exercise a day, that's not going to prepare you for that test. You have to train your body to move nonstop for 10 minutes. Actually, more so. When I was training I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I think I trained for about 5 to 6 months because I wanted to have to be the best that I could be for that test. Not that I was physically out of shape, but I normally wouldn't
Yeah.
exercise with those kind of intervals. And you need to be able to go beyond that. And that's, I think, a big failure too, is people only train to that one moment. Like if the Stairmaster is
Mhm.
only going to be 3 minutes and some change, they're only training for 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Like, no, you need to continuously like wear yourself out, get to
Yeah.
that wall, and then try to go through that wall. And I think that's some of the failure points that we have in our training for our physical side of it, is that people don't train to push through that wall.
Yeah.
And on the fire grounds as well, is we're only training so much, and then once we hit that wall, that's when people stop, and we need to push through that wall because
Mhm.
that's what the CPAT is, want to see how much you can push yourself through and not give up. Having that 5-month training program that you built yourself is awesome. That says you're a lot about your commitment and determination to get the job. Because again, a lot of people, they don't train appropriately. They just do the bare minimum and think they're going to pass it. And when they get to the actual test day and they flop.
Yeah.
Usually it's the Stairmaster that a lot of people fail because they didn't push themselves through that wall, and they reach that point of they get usually to about the 2-minute mark, and that's when they starting to feel the pain, and then they fail it because either they fall off the Stairmaster or grab the railings, and
Mhm.
then they're done.
And
Now, yep, go ahead.
physically, yeah, I would say physically people are capable of doing it and they know it, but it's that mental aspect of it where you start feeling the burning or the pain, or
Mm,
you have a little bit of a mental breakdown that you're not able to rein back in. And then your brain's like, okay, then we're done. We're done and you're getting off of this. So that's when they tap out and like, okay, I'm done. But you need that training to push you and you need to learn how to get through that mental block, whether it's via breathing, via any like sort of technique, and to know that your body's trying to shut down on you, but your brain can help you keep going forward. Because our bodies can do things that we don't even know, but
right.
it's our brain that stops us from doing those things.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. You nailed it. It's our mind that keeps us going. When you need to train your mind as well as your body. You can have a really fit body, but if your mind keeps telling you to quit, then you're going to quit.
Yeah.
As athletic as you can be, if you don't have that determination and that drive in your mind to say, nope, I'm going to keep going, your body's going to quit. The mind's driving you.
I think
So
I
it's
did
not.
have a little bit of a fire too because my hiring in Derry was contingent on me passing
Mm,
CPAT. And then Captain Sturgis, who was running my background, was there at CPAT. So I was like, oh boy, he's watching me do this. So I
yeah.
really need to pass now.
Yeah, now the CPATs have become a recruiting method as well. Now it's like a sporting event. You know, we have all
The tables and
the
everything.
tables and the pamphlets, and and we have all the recruiters in the background watching and taking notes and saying,
Yeah.
I want this person, I want that person, and it's definitely a game changer because we need good people in our fire service,
Yeah.
and now we're there watching them pass the CPAT and see if that is who we want
Yeah.
for our department. Now, with your 5-month program, did you take notes? You write it down? Do you share that with other females who are trying to pass the CPAT? Is that something you make available for them?
I did share it with I think two other people at the time, and I have it. It's in. I used to do like Excel spreadsheets of them because then I could just use my phone to plug in, what I was doing for weights and whatnot. But yeah, I
Sure.
still have it available. It's somewhere in my plethora of programs.
So you also have, so we talked about it a little bit. You have Josh, who is your boyfriend,
Yes,
and you guys currently live together. And he's a police officer for the same town that you work in as well.
he is.
And how do you guys deal with that? The fact that you literally could be on the same call and have to deal with that same issue, whether it be a fire, a motor vehicle accident, a cardiac arrest, just anything that it's got to be hard to not talk about the day or the what you saw on shift. And how do you separate work and then your home life?
It took a bit learning to do that, but we know that if we need to talk about something, we'll talk about it, and then you kind of move forward from it. So if you have a difficult call and you need to talk about it at home, then by all means talk about it. Coming off a shift, we might just kind of give a quick recap of this happened, this happened, this happened, and then essentially it's done for until your next shift. I mean, we don't really talk about work that much at home. It's
Mm-hmm.
just kind of natural for us to do. But like we'll recap. He'll be like, "Oh, I went to X call and X call and X call," and I was like, "Oh, like if we ask how the day went, or I'll say, like, oh, I had like this. I had my first, XYZ," and so we've just found something that works where if we need to talk about it, we can, but it really doesn't really affect us at home. I feel very lucky to have a significant other who's in the similar field of a first responder because they understand, and he's seen so much more than I have
Mm-hmm.
with his 3.5 years on. Like he's seen things that I might see one day, but maybe not. So he's seen a lot, and it's tough for me to sometimes understand that because I haven't experienced it, but he knows that if he needs to talk about it, I'm here to listen. So we found ways that work for us, and it took a little bit of time, but it got so much. Like we sit at home and we just enjoy relaxing, laying on the couch with Willow, watching TV. Like we've found solace in just chilling when we get at home, especially with how shifts have been lately in terms of call volume and whatnot, and for us, no sleeping.
Yeah, so I mean, at least like for sleep, right? Like the fact that you are both respectful of each other's time needed to rest, coming off shift or going back on shift, and it's been a hectic schedule where you guys pick up a lot of overtime. I think that helps a lot, knowing that you know how important it is to leave each other alone when they come back home, and that person just wants to sleep. Because some spouses don't understand it. Like, they think sometimes there might be some times when we have a good shift and we didn't do a whole lot, or, we got to sleep and it's still not a good sleep. I think some
Yeah.
people, that's a very miscommon thing that people think in the fire service and EMS world, that, oh, they just slept all night. Maybe we didn't turn a wheel for 12 hours and we got to sleep for 8 hours, but it's not a comfortable sleep because your mind is constantly active, thinking that the lights are going to turn on full blast at any moment with those tones, and you have to spring out of bed and run to the truck, and you spend most of your brain thinking about that. So when you go, oh man, I didn't turn a wheel all night, yeah, but I'm still exhausted because my brain wouldn't shut off because I'm worried about what the next call is going to be. So I think that's always a misconception. A lot of people think that if we didn't turn a wheel, that we had this wonderful slumber, but that's not the case. You're also sleeping on beds that's not your own bed. It's super
Yeah.
uncomfortable at times. And, like for myself, I sleep in my clothes because I want to be ready at a moment's notice. And I can't, right now I'm at that time where I don't want to had to jump in my pants again.
Yeah. No,
But
I think
so yeah.
yeah, I think it's the same thing where it's like people think you get the perfect sleep when you don't go out for a call between the hours of like 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. But you're thinking that the worst call is going to come in. You're thinking you're going to hear that all tone where there's going to be a fully involved structure and someone's still in the house or whatnot. And so you don't. I'm pretty sure you don't get into that REM deep sleep.
Right.
You're always just kind of coasting along, waiting to make sure your brain knows that at any point those lights could turn on and it's someone's worst time in their life and you need to go and help them.
We're also taking in caffeine,
Oh God, yeah.
everything else, right? So you're because normally my routine when I'm at home, I'm not drinking caffeinated beverages, at 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So usually that's me starting to wind down. But at work, yeah, it's a little bit different. I might be drinking something to help me stay awake for a little bit
Celsius at
more.
8 o'clock.
Right. So that's great. So you do have a good working relationship of knowing each other's moments or zones, like to leave each other alone or to help pick each other up. Now, when you guys are on scene, though, when you guys are actually doing calls where you happen to might be on the same scene, is it difficult to not want to console each other, he's probably watching you going, oh man, Timary's stressed right now. I can see it. I can see her body language. I can see the way she's talking to people. Is it the same vice versa, right? Like you see Josh and you could tell he's getting stressed. He's in the moment, but you don't want to embarrass him and try to calm him down because he has his brother police officers there to do that as well. How difficult is it not to want to just reach out and touch their shoulder and say, hey, hold on, you're going to be okay. That don't be stressed.
It's tough, but I think knowing that the people on the department, he works with great people on his department, and that you can still be there for him. We always keep it professional. Like we're not huge on PDA anyways, but like we really, if we're on a scene together, we're coworkers, we're working for the same town, and we're not in a relationship, or we're in a relationship at that time, but like we're not in the relationship scene. We're on working scene. We're not on boyfriend girlfriend scene. So we're coworkers at this time, and we'll give each other like jabs and whatnot if we see each other and it's kind of a calm down. We're off to the side, and like the guys on our department and on his department, they'll play along and whatnot. But when it's kind of a tough situation scene, we're there as coworkers, and I know that he is with good people on his department, and if he needs something, we always will send each other a little text after, be like, hey, you okay? I saw that. And a lot of times we'll table it until we get home.
Sure.
To discuss, just because we also don't necessarily like texting about it. We're like, well, we'd rather have a face-to-face conversation, but we know that we're working, we have good coworkers, and we can trust those coworkers of each other to help each other.
Sure.
I think that really helps. I mean, we have been on a couple of scenes where we worked at arrest together, and you were in the back with us, and so we'll talk about it after. But I mean, with us too, I mean, it's a horrible thing to say, but like you get used to it. The crappy things that you see and the shitty things that you see, you get used to it. And it doesn't mean that it still doesn't affect people, but for me personally, it takes a little less time to move forward from it. And
sure, you get some thick skin, and that is a great point because if you don't have that thick skin, or if you can't move on quick, you're not going to make it in this industry. That's just facts. You can't dwell on those calls that have a bad outcome and think about that your whole shift, because you're not going to make it on your shift.
Yeah.
And you're not going to make it for your career if that's all you ever think about is those calls. So I think having a good rapport, like you said, like he has his fellow coworkers on the police side that get him through those tough times while he's on shift. And the same thing with us in the fire service, that if it's a bad call, we have great officers and line brothers and sisters that can talk us through it. And I think we do a great job with talking about after the call and making sure everyone's okay. We have a lot of good supportive people in the town of Derry that care about us and make sure our mental health is there. So you and Josh, I know, like, I just was thinking about that, like we talked about earlier, that the one call where you're in the ambulance and you called him babe, and you felt you just couldn't even let it go. Like the whole night you're just talking about that. And honestly, a lot of people didn't even catch on the fact that you called him babe. You're the one who actually pointed out and said, oh my God, I called him babe. And all of us were like,
got it in the back, because I think
I kind of gave you the look.
I was you doing compressions and the lights went out. I was like, can you please get the lights, babe? Oh shit.
But that helps to make those moments, like, even though we are in the middle of a really bad call, and we're not going to be laughing in the back of the ambulance, so sometimes you can't help it, but it helps to relieve the seriousness of the outcome of that call, where we're going to sit back at the kitchen table and joke that you called him babe to get the lights, and I'm in the middle of compressions and I caught that and gave you the look. That's what makes that moment for us to be able to have some moment of levity and to be able to not dwell on the negative part of it. And we have to come back to station and we have to joke. And I think people sometimes, especially passerbys who don't understand the fire service world, or, when they see us on scene of a horrific accident, there might be a moment where we might be laughing. They don't understand why we're laughing, and then they get mad, or it's a structure fire and, the fire's over and we might be having a moment where we're laughing with each other or slapping each other on the shoulder. We have to. And if we take every moment so seriously, we're not going to survive in this world. And so on scene, if we find humor in such a small thing, we need to enjoy that moment, because we can't just be solemn all the time. We're going to lose each other. We're going to be able to we're going to fall in this deep depression if we don't understand how to find humor in such small moments. And again, it might be a horrific time. We're not having burst out, balls of laughter, but if we can find a moment to smile and laugh, we need to take advantage of that. And
you want to find a little sunshine in that aspect of, you just did everything that you could to save this person's family member or to save this house. Excuse me. You did everything that you possibly could, and the outcome's the outcome. Unfortunately, we always hope for the best outcome possible. We hope that not much of the house is lost. We hope that no one lost their lives. We hope that, we get this person back. But in reality, you do everything that you can and the odds still might not be in your favor. And that's something that's, I've had to learn to come to terms with, where, I can't always make the person come back. I can do everything I can to make the person come back. But I mean, I've been involved in one code save in like the 6 or 7 codes that I've been a part of. And, you do everything possible and still the odds just might not be there, unfortunately. Yep. Doesn't mean on the next time you're not going to do everything possible, because you're like, well, the odds are against me. You're still going to do everything you possibly can, even if you know those odds are against you, but you're going to do everything in hopes that that 1% that you'll get is going to be the 1% that ends up happening.
Yep. We always hope for the positive outcome.
Oh yeah.
Like you said, and we want that. We want everyone to go home safe and their family members to come back home to them, but we're professionals as well.
Yep. And
so we have to know that sometimes there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days.
And as much as we want and have to take care of other people, we need to take care of ourselves first in order to take care of those other people. So if we need to have a little sunshine moment of a little joke or finding some light in the darkness of what's going on right now, then we'll take that, because we also need to make sure that we're doing okay and that we're still able to smile and enjoy things. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to do our best and put our best foot forward, do everything we can to help others. It just means that, we need to take a second for ourselves so that we can make sure that we can take care of other people and do what we can to take care of other people.
100%. I love it. Now, you haven't caught many fires in your career thus far.
Sadly.
Hey, the one that sticks out for me is when we had last year. I was stuck in the ambulance. Yeah. I was stuck on the ambulance and you got to be on the engine, and you were first due on that. That had pretty much, well, you also had the tractor trailer fire, but we'll go with the structure fire. So with that was your first real fire, correct? What was that like for you? Being so fresh, so green, what was going through your head for that moment on that fire?
Shit. Was kind of where I was at. And I will reference the tractor trailer one for a second, because we had 2 tailboarders on, and Phillips was kind of my mentor at that time. And he looked over at me and I looked at him. He could tell I was jacked up about it. And he goes, breathe. I was like, oh, okay, I'm fine. Because on that one, we could see the plumes from the highway and we knew that it was roaring. But in this one, I was the sole tailboarder. So I was like, oh, I need to breathe. Because it's the mix of adrenaline and kind of like the, oh shit, like, what are we going to go into? So it was adrenaline, definitely, but I was able to kind of control those emotions and that adrenaline through breathing techniques, and kind of put that into good use with, I know I need to grab the hose. I know I need to pull the line. The line wasn't a great pull. It was spaghetti, but I knew I had people there to help me. And I knew that that was something that I needed to then work more on. But it was a lot of, wow, this is actually happening. And so I pulled the line, and Lieutenant Garone hit a knock on the outside while I was getting masked up. And then he's like, here, the nozzle's yours, and we're going in. And I think that basically it was knocked down at that time for the most part. Like, a good chunk of it was just in that front room on the Alpha Bravo corner. And we were expecting that room to span the length of the house, but it was really like a 10 by 10 room. So when we got in and we hit it all, and we ended up knocking it down, and then we were doing the overhaul, it was really shocking that it was just that small of a room. Even Chief was like, I thought it was going the whole length of the house. And so we were able to contain it to that room, which was great. And there was no expansion up into the top, I don't believe, up into the second floor in the attic, because it was a split level. But it was a lot of like, wow, that did happen. It was a room and contents. It wasn't like a big, huge fire where we're going in and there's fire all around us. But I think for my first fire, I think it was best case scenario. I think it was a great learning experience. And at that time, Lieutenant Garone was still kind of functioning as a K unit too. So he let me be involved in kind of the investigation aspect, so I could see how that went. And him and Chief Beaumont were there doing that, and I was able to help a little bit with that. So it was a really good learning experience. And I think it was also something that I could see, what do I need to work on more? And post polls being one of them. But it was something where I also kind of got another recap of why I chose Derry in the department, with the amount of support and people checking in. They're like, hey, you did that, like took the nozzle and you went in, like you did it. And just people being there for each other. And I think it was very eye-opening. And it was, again, I think it was a good first fire for me, being in room and contents, and being a pretty easy knockdown to kind of get that little confidence boost, especially being so green in the fire service. I think that it helps me prepare for, worst case scenario one day that might come in when we're on shift. But yeah, I think it was as good as it could have gone. I'm not sure what the outcome of the house was. I don't know if I think it was a total loss. I think
no, it was a save.
Yeah, no, they had to redo that room.
Yeah, they rebuilt. It was minimal damage for the most part for fires that go. For your ride into the scene, because it was only 3 people on the truck, right? You're riding back, and it's the driver, it's the lieutenant, and then it's you. What was it like going through your head, being so fresh, en route to a reported structure fire, confirmed structure fire, and now you're going to be the one who's responsible, for you're responsible for being a paramedic now. You're responsible for calling the shots there. But now you're the first one now who's supposed to be responsible for pulling that hose line. What was the expectation set for you? What was it like driving, being in the back, your first real fire on your first department that you really want to be a part of? Again, you're competitive. You want to prove everybody that you're meant to be here, that this is your role. This is what you wanted. When you're in the back seat going to that structure fire, what was it that was like going through your head?
A little bit of shock. Definitely an adrenaline rush, but also trying to breathe, calm myself down, and just walk myself through mentally what I had to do. So, okay, I'm going to pull I think it was 1 3/4 inches, going to pull that out, going to flake it out on the lawn, or flake it out, whatever is available. Didn't get to see. I was also I cannot turn around in the seats. I cannot see over the seat. So I was trying to get a view, but it wasn't working. So I ultimately got the view when we took the driveway. And then just, seeing that and formulating a plan as quick as possible. Say, okay, pulling, going this way, and making sure I have a direct route to
Was there any conversations to calm you down en route to the call? Were you asking a crap load of questions? Because I know how you are. You love to ask a lot of questions.
Want to know the answers.
Yeah. So did you have a lot of that en route to the call, or was it kind of just you're just in your own mindset and just getting everything picturing? Because for me, when I do fires, I do compartmentalize everything. So I know when I get out of the truck, this is the first step I'm going to do. Then this is the second step. And I'm going through my steps until they become automatic. So I'm just curious for you, since it was your first real fire, and this was something that you have a new officer. Did you have all of your steps in your brain on the way there, and did you ask him 1,000 questions, or were you just in your own mind getting your game face on?
More so in my own mind, because I knew that there was going to be a lot of radio traffic between, notifying about updates and whatnot. But Lieutenant Garone did speak with me a little bit, saying like, we do have confirmed, and he was very calm with it though. It's like we have confirmed, so you're gonna pull the line, and we're gonna see what we have when we get there, but you're gonna pull the line, and we're gonna go about it that way. And I was like, okay, and that was kind of it. I knew the expectations and what he wanted of me, so that's what I did when we got there. I put the irons right outside the door, right outside the engine door, and I was like, my goal is the line. I'm going to stretch this. So there was a little bit of conversation, but when he said, this is what I want of you, I was like, okay, great. I'm going to formulate what I want to do with that. And so yeah, he was calm, and that kind of helped me relax a little bit. But yeah, it was more so in my own mind, like,
Sure.
calm down and breathe. It was referencing what Alex had told me before going to the tractor trailer. I was like, look, I need to breathe. I need to control this. I need to breathe. I'm going to be fine.
Because it's kind of like game day, right? Like, I
Yeah.
played sports in college, and I can only imagine how nerve-wracking that must be for like your first game, getting on the ice and getting all suited up. And it's got to be the same way of breathing techniques, calming yourself down.
Yeah.
I don't want to screw this up in front of, thousands of people who are watching this game unfolding. I don't want to fall flat on my face on the ice,
Yeah.
or I don't want to miss that goal, or whatever your responsibility is. And I think that's awesome to have your experience as being an athlete playing college level hockey, and then coming into the fire service, and you're going to have that same mindset of, I think that's why I think it's so key that a lot of people who play sports do so well in the fire service, because it's that same thing. It's competitive. You know how to get yourself in that right mindset, and you know that you're ready for game day. You prepared your body and you prepared your mind for it. So a lot of that from your college experience of playing hockey, did that help a lot in your first fire of like, okay, it's game day, bro? I gotta get in my mind, and I get my game face on. Game face, bro. Game face. So
I
did
think
that
it
help a
really
lot?
did. Yeah, I think it really did. And I mean, I'd been in some higher motion, higher stress games throughout my life, and just knowing that I'm here to do my job, I am going to do everything that I can. I'm going to do my job to the best ability that I have, and that's going to be that. I want to get this knocked down. I want to save as much as we can. My goal is that. My ultimate goal, though, is to do my job to the best of my ability. And so trying to stay in that mindset of, I've prepared, I'm ready, and I need to remain calm, use the adrenaline to my advantage. Don't let it overtake me. I think that was kind of the big things, especially with it being my first, structure fire, that I really wanted to hone in my adrenaline for positive use rather than overwhelming. So I think this talking with myself and kind of just, breathing really helped with that.
That's excellent. I love it. That's a great method to have. Breathing's definitely helpful for all of to control yourself, your mind and your body, and controlling that trembling and controlling that your mind to make sure that you can stay focused. That's a great method to have. Now, you said that you struggled a bit when you did the hose line, when you pulled it. It didn't come out as you wanted it. I mean, it's the first time you pulled on a structure fire, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, mistakes do happen. Unfortunately, we don't want them to happen. And honestly, I don't think it was a mistake for you. I think it's just a learning experience. The fire went out, right? You guys stretched the hose line, you applied water on the fire. It didn't hinder operations. You were able to recover quickly from that because you have a lieutenant that was calm under pressure. And I think that's also important, is that was your first fire. And honestly, that was the first fire for him, I think, being as an officer as well.
And I think Chief Sebastian.
Right. So you had a lot of first times for everything. And so things happen, but to the outside point of view, those people didn't know that you didn't flake it off correctly, right? Like it came out like a pile of spaghetti. But it was a quick recovery because you had an experienced officer on that truck to help you, and the operator as well. But I also think it's key is that you had such really a positive experience about it, because you didn't have an officer that belittled you and made you feel like crap pulling that first hose line in your life on a structure fire. The fact that, it happened, it didn't come out exactly how you wanted it, but it didn't hinder his operations. You got the fire knocked down from the exterior, and then you guys transitioned inside, and you got the job done. And then the fact that you just said it, I went back and I knew there was work I needed to have done and practice more on. Did you, the next day, did you play it over in your head? Did you start playing over, oh man, okay, I know next time I'm going to pull the hose line like this to make it more effective. I need to mask up more quickly, or, was those, like I always said, a good firefighter is always going to replay those calls in their head, whether it's a cardiac arrest, whether it's a motor vehicle accident, small or big. Usually, again, for me, I have my book that I put all my notes in. Do you kind of do the same thing? Like after that call was done, did you play it back and make notes of what you need to work on to make yourself more effective or more efficient?
Oh yeah, I played back, I pictured the front lawn and I was like, okay, how should I have flaked this out or how should I have pulled the hose? It's like I should have went around the bush instead of trying to go in front of it. I should have used more of the front lawn and I should have also I'm pretty sure the top load fell off of my shoulder. I think I had it a little too far back and it fell off my shoulder. So it's like I need to make sure it's more centered or a little more forward so that I have it and can control the hose load and then drop it where I want it.
Sure.
And so playing that back and then putting that into practice with going through hose pulls at the station and, picking your brain about it. And now how we have the reverse. And I was like, okay, now we got to do the reverse side of it. But just continuously, trying to practice and think of different ways to do it. And, you're going to be in different situations each time with your location, your orientation to the building that you're trying to enter, where the entrance to the building is. So it might be on the Alpha side, but there's a little alcove there where the door is actually facing the Bravo side. And then you need to figure out how you're going to go about it that way. But I think playing around with it and having different, training scenarios that we do at Central, especially with the station that we're at, I think that, playing around with that and putting that into practice has been substantial in helping me come about that. And talking with Lieutenant Groen after, and we had our debrief and going about, like, this is what I want to work on moving forward. And, not taking it as, you did a bad job. It was, you pulled the hose line, we got it done. What can we do better in the future?
Sure.
Rather than what did we do wrong? It was, what can we do better? And, this is what we did well on. This is what we can do better on. I think having that positive outlook on it helps keep people ingrained in wanting to continue to do better and learn more about it.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's key to make it more effective for you for training for all of us. If you make it sound like a chore, if you're talking down to somebody and saying, well, you did such a crap job, we're going to make sure we do this 100 times until you get it right. It's not going to be enjoyable for you. It's going to be a chore. And then, yeah, you're going to remember how to do it really well, but you're just going to be pissed the whole time. And then when you go to teach somebody, the story's going to be, well, my lieutenant was pissed the way I pulled that hose line, so he made me do it 100 times, and I hate this thing. But this is, that's all. That stories usually, when it comes to training, those are how the stories usually lead off. I hated every moment of this. Now I have to show you how to do it because I don't want you to have to go through the bullshit that I went through.
You see it as like a consequence rather than a learning experience.
Right. You take it as a punishment and you don't enjoy that training. People learn more effectively when they're having fun, when it's a group effort and they enjoy it. You're going to want to do more of it. If it becomes a chore or a punishment, then no one's going to enjoy it and then everyone's going to be miserable and you're not going to learn anything out of it. So I think that's great that you had a lot of feedback from it and you took a lot of that, what you wanted to see better, and you made sure that you got that training once you were done with that call. I think that says a lot about character of people, because there's people that are very happy about doing the bare minimum, and even though they might have flopped on whatever call they're on, they don't even think about it. They're done with the call and they move on to the next one, and they'll never even think about training or being better at it. So I definitely don't lose that passion. Keep on pushing and learning how to be better at all those skills. And before we start winding things down, one thing I know you are really passionate about too is the Battle of the Badges, the CHAD program. Now that's a hockey game that we have in New Hampshire between police and fire. How long have you been doing that?
So last year was my first year. This is going to be my second year. Unfortunately, not able to skate this year, but I will be coaching.
Oh, that's fun. That's
very happy, that they took me on. I went through the first tryout and realized that, just it was not going to work out with my hip. And if I kept playing, I would need to take time off from work. Like I can't fathom doing that. So I was like, you know what, I might have to hang up the skates this year. But reached out and they're more than happy to have me as an assistant coach. So I was like, great, I wanted to stay involved with the game in hopes of being back on the ice next year. So yeah, this is going to be my second year. And I think Cody, it's going to be like his 6th or 7th year, something like that.
Cody Lapis, right? So Cody Lapis is in it again, and he's accepting donations for the fundraiser. Can you tell me about the program?
So Children's Hospital at Dartmouth Hitchcock is who runs the game or puts it on essentially. And they raise funds for children with a multitude of different kind of illnesses, diseases, cancers. And the person that kind of was the point of contact for the game last year, his name was Elliot Perry. He was a patient at Children's Hospital at Dartmouth Hitchcock. And he's now, oh my God, I think he's like 12 or 13 years old. But he took his experiences at the hospital and he was raising money and ultimately helped build I think it was one playground, maybe two, at Chad for the children there so that they have something to go outside of the hospital and do. But it's something that, you're helping these kids and their families who are going through these very difficult times. You're trying to help make that time have a little more sunshine with it. Trying to, fundraise money so that they can have further research and can have the families go through this with fewer expenses and really no expenses whatsoever. And so it's really, trying to have as friendly a game as possible between first responders. And I mean, there's always that going at it between police and fire, but for the fundraising for kids and their families who really truly need it. And so they do a great job with it, and I'm very lucky and honored to be able to be a part of it again this year, even though it's in a bit of a different role, but still trying to raise money for them and hoping to beat our goal of last year. I think it was over like $200,000 that was fundraised at the game. So hopefully doing a bit more than that this year.
So now with that, you're taking on the coaching position. Do you still have a fundraising responsibility for it?
Not as much. We don't, as the coaches, you don't have kind of like that same goal, but I'm still gonna fundraise as much as possible. I know Cody, he has to hit a certain goal in order to play, but so I'll definitely be upping his as well. But we still fundraise. We can fundraise if we want to. I'm definitely going to fundraise still to raise as much money as possible for them.
And when's the game?
It is March 16th, I believe.
March 16th. Okay, so people have time.
I think it's a battalion 3-day for us. Yeah. March 16th.
So March 16th, Chad Battle of the Badges, hockey, fire versus police. And I think for the last couple of years, the police have beaten fire every time, right?
Unfortunately.
So maybe we can change it this time.
We're hoping to change it around this year.
I hope so. So that's good. So Cody Lapis, he's fundraising for Battle of the Badges. Timary Malley is also doing Battle of the Badges as assistant coach. Timary, before we start leaving here, what is it that you listen to when you're working out?
Ooh. There's
what people listen to.
Yeah. My go-tos when I don't know, I'll switch it up every once in a while, but it's this mix on SoundCloud called Down Under. It's a country mix that someone puts together. It's like 45 minutes long, and they do remixes in it. And I just like the constant changing, and I don't have to pick songs, so I just let that run through. Nice. But yeah, that's my go-to.
Country girl. Okay, cool.
Yes,
Country
I do
girl
like
from Worcester, Mass.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Timary, thank you so much. Is there anything that you could say to any females or girls that are looking to join the fire service? Any kind of, can they reach out to you if there's anything that they need to know about being a paramedic, to being a firefighter? Can they reach out to you on your social media pages? I know in the state of New Hampshire, where we have our CPAT, I know you're very active in that. So is Louise Bishop. And is there any kind of advice that you could give them or any kind of parting words for that?
Yeah. Also, yes, feel free to contact me on any type of social media or whatnot. But I would say to not let any outside pressures get you down, to, if you're passionate about it, keep going with it, and that, your actions are going to prove yourself. And if you keep working at it, then you will be successful and continue to want to grow and to learn more. Your knowledge isn't going to stop, and you need to be willing to be open to learning more and growing forward, because that's how you're going to keep succeeding in the field and keep getting better at what you're doing.
Great. Love it. Well, Timary, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I'll be seeing you tomorrow on shift on the bus.
Oh, yes, on Medic 1.
It's going to be fun because we have snow coming in. So that's
I
going to be a whole
know.
lot of fun. Not looking forward to that one, but we'll make the most of it like we always do and try
Yes.
not to screw up too much. But where's the fun in
A
that,
little
right?
bit's okay.
Well, Timmy, thank you so much. You could just hit that leave button and then I'll be talking to you in a little bit. Thank you so much, Timmy, and I'll be talking to you tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great night or
Thank
day.
you
I
so
mean,
much.
always
Absolutely. Sure. One of those things.
one of those things. Honored to be a part of this, Mike.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye.
So that was Timary Malley. She's a paramedic for the town of Derry. If anyone who is interested, especially females or girls that are looking to join the fire service or become a paramedic, she is a wealth of knowledge. She is a very passionate person inside the medical field and the fire service field. I'm proud to be her partner, and I'm very happy of the work that she's doing and the dedication that she has to the service. So if anyone's looking to join, if you're needing help with a fitness program or learning how to become a paramedic. She's done it all. So please reach out. Nothing's a secret here in the fire service. If people want to join a program or if they want to join the service, we are always happy to let everybody know how to join the program or to join the service and how to be successful in that. So please reach out to her. Her name is Timary Malley, and she would be happy to advise anybody who's looking to join or how to complete the CPAP program. The CPAP program is never easy for a lot of people who don't train for it. So please reach out to her or reach out to the State of New Hampshire Fire Academy, and they can help you get in contact with her or anybody else to help you train for that. Again, thank you so much for joining the C.A.N Report. I'm Mike Goldstein, Stickers, and we'll be talking to you soon. Take care, everyone.